You'd be forgiven for thinking that the Fanatec Podium button module rally is only of use for those that spend their life going sideways. But there's wider applications for the latest real-world crossover wheel from the Bavarian sim manufacturer, and we'll get to those shortly. As regular viewers will know, I've been on site the last few rounds of the WRC with Team Fordzilla and M Sport, so I thought I'd ask Fanatec if I could borrow the new rally wheel to make some content. And what they had available for me to borrow isn't a production version, so treat this as a very early look at a future product and not a review or anything close. And while we're doing disclaimers, I am a member of the Fanatec affiliate program, and if you use any of the links in the video description, I will earn a small commission. What we have here is essentially the real wheel from the Ford Puma Rally 1, with a Podum Hub attached at the back. At the time it was sent, it was non-working, as the firmware is still in a very early stage of development, though I have since had a chance to try it out on a rig in Athens. I'll get to the nitty-gritty details in a moment, but the killer feature of the Rally module is the intelligent lighting. Of course, you can change the colour and intensity of any of those backlit LED buttons, but it goes a little deeper. You have the ability to configure what happens after you press the button. For example, a flash mode, which would be fantastic for latching controls like indicators and pit speed limiter. And then there's the multi-position switches, or encoders, as they work in both modes. The backlight can be configured to change colour for each of the switch positions, giving you visual feedback about your settings without having to read the dial itself. As a no-HUD racer, that's something I really like to see. And while the settings will be replicated on the OLED screen, it's so much easier to recognise colours in your blurry peripheral vision than it is to read text. In terms of build, the Rally module is unsurprisingly pretty well sorted given the demands it faces in the real car. The buttons are a nice step up from those found on many other Fanatec rims with a firm feel and responsive click. And it's the same case with the rotary switches, which strike the right balance between being resistive enough that you can really rely on them, and not so resistive that they're a nightmare with gloves, sweaty hands, or in one of the oops moments. You can of course map the rotary controls to whatever you want, but on the real car they're used for, well, I'll let Craig Breen explain.
On the steering wheel itself, we have some options here. One is for the map that you use for boost, which is obviously the boost is what's giving you the power, this extra electric motor that gives you the boost when you're coming out of the corner. So we've got various different maps on how that's delivered, which is managed on this one. And then on the regen toggle that's here, that's basically other maps, as it says basically how the hybrid motor is being regenerated, how it's working in conjunction with the brakes and everything. So yeah, there's various different maps that we can use, and we can use these in various different combinations. The most important thing is that once we start the special stage, we can't adjust on any of these. So these all need to be pre-selected before we start. And then once you enter the stage, you're not allowed. If you touch one of these, it's a penalty. You're in big trouble.
Fun little aside over, and I should also mention the two D-pads at the top of the module. These are a great alternative to the ever-present funky switch, and for me at least, are a much better setup. Like the other controls, they're firm and offer good tactile feedback. Now, this isn't the D-pad you found on your mate's definitely legit third-party controller that they always seem to insist that you use when they smashed you at every split-screen game they owned. With the positioning at the top of the module, they're in just the right place for thumb access and offer a lot of control access without taking up valuable real estate. So, I'm a fan. Now, the wheel rim. This was sent to me with a genuine Sparco rim attached, as is used in the real car, and it remains to be seen whether Fanatec will produce a replica of that wheel, or indeed what the licensing situation is there in general. But for me, this is where things get interesting. I mentioned in the intro that the Podium button module Rally isn't just for the too right don't cut crowd, and thanks to standardization and the ecosystem, there are plenty of options. To start with, wheels with the standard 70mm hole pattern will fit with the included adapter plate, and since the module mounts to the front of the wheel, that doesn't rule out rims that have a spoke layout that doesn't suit the form factor, which means lots of options. I suspect GT and Formula style setups will be popular, with either the Podium module and shifter paddles attached, or the Club Sport Universal Hub, both of which are supported by the way. And while I've not had a chance to try this out myself, the Photoshop mockups I've made do look pretty promising. And there are a few good reasons to choose this over, say, a GT-focused all-in-one setup. First of all, there's the flexibility in the Fanatec ecosystem, but the various modules and hubs do all require some level of compromise. While the Club Sport hub is more accommodating, it does lack some of the functionality and the better build quality of the more premium Podium range offerings, and that's not the case here at all. And then there's the new functionality with the lighting, the excellent controls, and my newfound appreciation for our old friend, the D-pad. Of course, if you prefer your motorsport without the luxury of going round and round in circles, then it goes without saying that this is rather well suited. But there are some big questions remaining. Price, release date, availability, and packages, to name but a few. And at this stage, sadly, it's too early to get any answers for those. And personally, reading between the lines, that probably means that this one's a little bit away yet.